Well, Ross Perot, remember back in 1992 when he talked about that giant sucking sound of NAFTA, sucking jobs right out of the United States? Well, it turned out he was right. Look at this.
Implement that NAFTA, the Mexican trade agreement, where they pay people $1 an hour, have no health care, no retirement, no pollution controls, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and you're going to hear a giant sucking sound of jobs being pulled out of this country right at a time when we need the tax base to pay the debt and pay down the interest on the debt and get our house back in order.
Well, that really does sound familiar in this election cycle, 24 years later. As voters go to the polls today in Michigan, with Ohio up next week, lots of questions about the political power of unions. You know, both states, part of the Rust Belt, where unions have historically turned out the vote in large numbers for the Democrats. But this year, none of the powerful labor groups have actually thrown their support behind any candidate. Why? Lisa Booth is president of High Noon Strategies and a Washington Examiner contributor. Harlan Hill, a Democratic strategist and political consultant. Harlan, let me start with you. Welcome both. Union muscle, I mean,
Hi.
where is it? Hi, the U.A.W., the AFL-CIO, and the teamsters are withholding endorsements. Why?
Well, I think they want to put some pressure on Hillary to really respond to that, the lack of endorsement, and to shape her policy going forward. It's really interesting looking at a candidate like Donald Trump. I think this may be the first time ever that I've seen a Republican to the left of the Democratic frontrunner on trade and really issues that are important to blue-collar workers, especially in the Rust Belt states.
Lisa, you think that's the case?
Well, Donald Trump is certainly appealing to these blue-collar workers. I mean, we've seen it in polling. We're seeing it as evidence in Michigan, where he holds a double-digit lead. But we're also seeing the demise of unions across the country. If you look, union membership has gone from 1.5 million in 1979 to 400,000. But this is a positive thing for the country. If you look to the 25 states who have right-to-work laws, unemployment is 1.3% less than it is in those non-right-to-work states. You can also point to gubernatorial wins for Republicans in states like Wisconsin and Michigan to show the waning influence of unions. But I also think that there's a lot of disaffected voters out there because of the policies we've seen from President Obama. And that's the reason why some of these populist narratives we're seeing from Donald Trump are appealing to blue-collar workers. Or if you even look at young Americans, why they're going to Bernie Sanders in percentages of 80 to 85% in some of those Democratic contests. So I think it's because of the economic concerns of many Americans that they're looking to, some of these populist narratives right now.
Well, Lisa and Harlan, let's take a look at what you point out. I mean, the declining power of some of these unions. Back in, in 2015, look at this. 14.8 million union members, but back in the prime time of the Ronald Reagan days, 17.7 million. And in Michigan specifically, last year, 621,000 union members. That's about 15.7% of the workforce of the state. Look at that, 1983, more than a million, 30%. They've gone down by half. So Harlan, how does the union, how do they get their members out when you got GM building that plant down in Mexico, as Donald Trump says, when you got Carrier leaving Indianapolis and moving some of its operations to build those air conditioners in Mexico too?
So I'm going to say this. Let's not confuse union leadership with union membership. When you actually look at surveys of membership of unions across the country, only 40% self-identify as Democrats. So there are a lot of Republicans and independents mixed in here, too. And I think that really, to the detriment of union membership, the union leadership is really more interested in playing party politics than in solving problems for working class members of the union. So I think that blue-collar workers are really going to act independently of what they're told by the union this go-around. So there's only so much the unions can do, barring changing their policy entirely.
And do you think we're seeing that with the so-called Reagan Democrats going for Trump in large numbers, Harlan?
Without question. And I think Trump's in a unique position to really capitalize on this. I don't see somebody like Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio really being able to reach across and pull over these predominantly white, but really spanning all kinds of socioeconomic background, former Reagan Democrats. I think there's a real opportunity for Republicans here to grow the party and to pull in disaffiliated voters and members of unions. It's pretty remarkable, period of history here.
Yeah, Lisa, do you think that's true, that works basically to the detriment of Cruz and Rubio?
Well, I think that if you look at any of the candidates right now, they're all driving these populist narratives. We're seeing it, even Ted Cruz is driving a populist narrative. We're seeing it on both the right and left. Hillary Clinton is attempting to, but it's a little less believable given some of the statements she has made in the past, and also the fact that, you know, she takes millions of dollars from Wall Street and giving speeches to the likes of Goldman Sachs. So I think it's just not as believable on there. But we're seeing these populist narratives really being driven by both parties right now. I think that's largely attributed to the fact that if you look at the middle class, wages have been stagnant for so many Americans across the country under the Obama administration. Many families are making less now than they did before President Obama took office. We're seeing manufacturers send jobs overseas or shutting down because of the regulatory state that they're trying to survive in under President Obama. So I think that's a really strong narrative that Republicans and whoever the Republican nominee, because this thing is not in law, whoever the Republican nominee really needs to tap into, to reach out to these voters, to talk about the economy, to make this an economic election, and to really reach out to those families who are suffering at the hands of these failed policies from President Obama.
And before we get to the Republican nominee, very quickly, we have to wrap up. Lisa, and I'll go to you, Harlan. What do you predict will happen today?
So I think Trump. Oh, go ahead, Lisa. I'm sorry.
Oh, right now, Real Clear Politics has Donald Trump up about 12 percentage points. I think that a new Wall Street Journal poll also showed Donald Trump winning in double digits. But we're still in the proportional states right now, and the real prizes come on March 15th when we get to the winner-take-all states, specifically looking at Ohio and Florida, which are so key to Donald Trump winning.
Absolutely see what happens there. Harlan, last word.
I want to see what happens in Michigan. I think this is really important to stunt Kasich's momentum for Trump. And then I think she's right. I mean, we'll see after March 15th kind of where this thing lies.
All right, Harlan, Lisa, we got after today, another big week to go. All eyes on Ohio, big Rust Belt state, and Florida. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll see how the union vote plays out.